Good evening, and welcome to the Dr. Jeff Experience. I'm glad to have each and every one of you today. It is somewhat rainy day in the A. Um, just got finished celebrating Resurrection Sunday, and I'm glad to be here with you all with such an important subject that we're going to talk about tonight. If you could go ahead, if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and hit that link and subscribe button so that you never miss any more episodes. We've got some great information coming to you tonight. We want you to take some notes, tell a friend. Just go ahead and make sure you got your pen and your pads available. While you're doing that, I'm going to tag some people. Let me know where you are viewing from tonight. Go ahead and let me know. I'm going to tag some people here. I'm getting with all this technology, and it's so glad to have you all. What a what a time period we're in right now. So much is going on within our world, but I am glad to be a part of just the small things that are going on. And each and every one of us, we have a responsibility right now to do our part. And tonight I'm going to help us to find a way to do just that, do our small part. I always say that everybody can't do everything, but everybody can do something. And we've got to find out what that something is and do that in order to make this world a better place. We can start right with where we are. I hear music. Oh, I know what it is. Okay. All right. All this technology. We're going to talk about that too. But tonight we're going to talk about the importance of an educated country. And let me start off by saying this. I always realized how important education was. As a youngster, I read everything. I read the Reader's Digest. I read newspapers. I read encyclopedias. I read magazines. I used to come home from school and have to read a story to my grandfather every day. There was so much reading that went on at my auntie's house, and I watched the news and engaged in conversation. I can remember with my Aunt Dorothy talking about the news, and then my mother's sister-in-law, she was married to my mother's brother, my Aunt Lorraine. She was a world traveler, and I would talk to her about some of the places that she had visited, and it was amazing to me. I just realized that this is such a big world, and there was so much beyond the little place that I lived, and I just wanted to know as much as I can. So I looked at the globe, I read magazines, I read maps. I just loved education. And as I got older, I kind of got educated in some other things, but I still wanted to know more and learn more. So tonight we're going to talk about the importance of education, and especially having an educated country, because that's what we're lacking right now. We are lacking an educated country, and education means so much to so many for so many reasons, and we're going to discuss that. Let me try to pull up some of my stats tonight. First, let me talk about the importance of having an educated country. The the importance of an educated country, it or an educated workforce. Number one, and I'm going to give you some stats, and we're going to talk about it and discuss it. And Brother Lil John, politicians love low information voters. That's so important, man. We're going to talk about that. Thanks for checking in. The importance of having, and excuse me, my allergies are killing me. The importance of having an educated country, first of all, it gives you economic growth and stability. An educated workforce is essential for economic development. Countries with higher education levels experience such things as greater innovation and productivity. You look at some of our foreign countries, Finland, Germany, Sweden, and you look and see their productivity rate is high because the emphasis is on education. You have higher employment rates when you have a country with higher education levels. Yeah, Brother Pitts, glad to see you. Corporate giants, that's it, man. Let me put that up there. Corporate giants can control uneducated folks and continue the greedy against the needy. Yeah, man, that's true. Wow, you said a mouthful right there, my friend. You said a mouthful right there. Yeah, let's jump. Y'all see, I'm glad y'all jumping into this thing. So let's see here. Where was I? Hey, Kiva, how you doing? So all right. So here's what we're going to do. Where was I? Oh, okay. Yeah, so we were talking about the importance of having an educated country. You get greater innovation and productivity, higher employment rates, stronger and more resilient economies. Okay. Stronger, more resilient economies. According to the World Bank, every additional year of schooling can increase a person's income by 10%. So every year, every year more that a person gets educated, it adds up to 10% to their income. So the importance of having an educated country, number one, is you have economic growth and stability. But number two, you have healthier populations. Let me give you an example. Education is directly linked to better health outcomes because you're learning about your health. You're learning about what's good, what's bad. You're learning about, if I do this, what are the results? You're dealing with cause and action. You're dealing with, if I do this, what takes place because of it. I'm glad to see that Brother Kennedy of Health and Human Services is the United States is now dealing with an understanding and realization of chemicals and dyes in our food, in our cereals, in our drinks. Do you know that Gatorade and some of these other drinks, some of these other cereals, and all these other things that have red dye, blue dye, all these different dyes are not accepted in other countries? We're the only country that allows for dyes to be in our diet. Yeah, that's it, Brother Douglas. How to do your own research. I always tell people that freedom is learning how to become your own interpreter. How to become your own interpreter. When you learn how to be your own interpreter, when you rely on yourself being able to interpret what truth is, you've got freedom. Okay, you've got freedom. But yeah, there's foreign countries that don't allow dyes in their foods, in their drinks, sugary drinks, for instance. There's some countries that just say no to it. So now, Health and Human Services Director Kennedy is now stating that they're going to phase out. They're going to phase out these dyes, which means it's going to take a while because corporate greed, of course, as my brother Henry Pitts stated, corporate greed. So education is directly linked to better health outcomes. Educated citizens are more likely to access health care services. They're going to be able to navigate where to go and what to look for in these healthcare streets, I would say, because it's not easy navigating through the healthcare world. It is a place where you really have to have an education, or at least an educated advocate that can assist you with healthcare services. Educated citizens are more likely to understand health information. When going to the doctor, you need to know what questions to ask about what it is that you are trying to find out. In other words, oh, thank you, Kiva. Nice glasses. When you go to the doctor, let's say you're going to the cardiologist, well, you need to do some research yourself and find out like what's going on with the heart. If you're having a heart flutter, you need to let a person know and be able to let the doctor know, be able to describe that. If you're having some irregularity in some kind of way, you need to know how to explain that to a doctor. Yes, an advocate. Mark Douglas says, yes, an advocate, maybe a family member. That's correct. But you want to make sure that family member is trustworthy. And you also want to make sure that family member, or whoever the advocate is, knows what they're talking about. Educated citizens are more likely to make healthier choices. For instance, there's the thing now, you want to eat healthy eggs. Okay, so you have eggs, then you have what's known as cage-free eggs, or free-range eggs, or grass-fed chickens. So let's at grass-fed beef. So let's talk about that. For instance, when you do the research and you find out about grass-fed beef, you think that, oh, okay, so they're out grazing. Well, that's not always the situation. Oftentimes they can be still in those troughs, tight together, and they just feed them grass. And that's grass-fed. So you read it and say grass-fed. Oh, okay, these must be real healthy cows. And they probably could be, but they're not just out in the pasture. Pasture-raised, grass-fed is what you're looking for. What I look for in an egg is cage-free, pasture-raised. Raised. That means they're out in an open area. And I normally try to buy from small farms until I get my own. But the regular eggs, they just all thousands of eggs together, and they're just fed corn or whatever else. And, they're prone to disease and everything else. So, but you only know that through education. You only know that through reading. Research shows that higher education levels correlate with lower rates of infant mortality, disease, and preventable deaths, because just like I just spurted out a small thing about grass-fed, free-range, cage-free, all that sort of stuff, that came out of research. And it's something that you, me, and anybody else can get, especially in the world that we live in now. We live in a world of information. But the importance of that is we've got all this information, but we've got to learn how to fact check everything. And I did an episode about the importance of fact checking and how you can fact check those things that you hear on the news, the things that you hear newscasters and other people talk about. You got to go and fact check for yourself. You got to read. You got to read. It's just not going to enter your mind. Some people I can remember growing up. I'm old enough to remember when people would say, I'm going to put this book underneath my pillow. And they say that it's just going to morph into my brain. That doesn't happen. It doesn't work like that. So I'm going through a lot of information. If you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and comment and say something. You can use the chat on YouTube, on LinkedIn, or on Facebook Live. So an educated country also, it helps us with having a political stability and stronger democracies. In other words, education fosters critical thinking, something that we are lacking right now. It gives forth civic responsibility. I just got finished talking about civics at a town hall and the importance of it and how it's not taught like it used to be. Who's responsible for what? We don't do our own due diligence civically to find out who we are even trying to elect. We get the flyers, we get the mailers in the mail. We hear people talking on Instagram, on Facebook, on social media, all of the 30-second sound bites on TikTok and X and all of those. But do we actually know what that person is responsible for? Yeah, does bad health in addition to education feed into poverty also? Yeah, Pitts. I'm going to talk about that. You're right on it, man. I'm going to show you how the lack of bad health, the lack of education feeds into the poverty rates. That's a good question. That's my ITC brother. He's on it. Political stability and stronger democracies. When we have an educated country, adds towards political stability and stronger democracies. Educated citizens are more likely to participate in the democratic process. When you've got an educated public, they are going to be involved in the democratic process because they have done their due diligence to find out who's running for what office. They know that there's a difference between the local legislation, county legislation, state legislation, federal legislation, and they know who is responsible for what. They know the role of a county commissioner. They know the role of a person who's part of the Board of Utilities. They know the role of the mayor council situation. They know the role of county police, county sheriffs, United States Marshal, local police. They know the roads that they are live on or in close proximity to. They know that this road is a county road. They know that this road is a state road. They know who to call for something that happens on that road or in that section of town because they have done their due diligence and they are more likely to participate in the democratic process. An educated society also resists misinformation and propaganda. In other words, they can tell something that comes from a troll or a bot, okay? A bot meaning artificial intelligence or fake information, okay? Bad news information. An educated public also will hold leaders accountable and because of that, it strengthens governance and transparency. In other words, when a politician knows that they serve an educated public, they're not going to, they're not going to lie so easily, or they're not going to lie at all, because the questions that you ask shows that you have done your due diligence and you know a little something about what you're talking about. So the importance of education in the country, it adds to political stability and stronger democracies. I told you earlier that it creates healthier populations and also causes economic growth and stability. But number 4, it gives us social equity and mobility. What do I mean by that? Education is a great equalizer. It provides individuals from disadvantaged backgrounds a pathway to better jobs. When you are an educated person, you can go in and apply for jobs, and you may not have all of the education that you need, but you have the knowledge that can get you in the door and lead you to getting the education that you need. Higher incomes. It's a well-known fact that those with more education can get higher incomes. It also leads to improved living standards. Countries with equitable education systems, they have, and here's what you were talking about, Brother Pitts. Improved living standards. Countries with equitable education systems have lower rates of poverty and social unrest. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. And let me say this, I don't want you guys thinking that, okay, oh, he's got a little bit of education now he's an education snob. No, not at all. I always knew that education was key. And I didn't start my degree process until I was in my late 40s, early 50. And it was at the time where I was able to actually concentrate on becoming educated. But before that, I always read. I always read books. I always learned about what was going on. I watched the news. I read newspapers. Whatever I could do to learn. I was around people who were well educated. And I educated myself. There's a lot of people who have never been to school with no degrees that I've met and had conversations with that they blow people out the water who have PhDs and beyond. I don't know if you can get more than PhD, but you know what I'm talking about. I've been and this is why you should never judge a person. I've been in conversations that people have called drunks and alcoholics and or street people or that sort of thing. And I've had conversations with them and got more knowledge than some people that I talk to who I know have degrees. So you don't know what has ever happened in a person's life, and you should never judge a person based on their current situation. But instead have empathy and sympathy for them. So and try to help out. Try to see where we can help out. But we're talking about an educated country and the results of. Number 5, the results of having a educated country. It brings about innovation and global competitiveness. In a globalized world, nations compete through ideas, technology, and creativity. Countries that invest in education, they lead in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, STEM, and STEAM. I think it's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Okay. Countries that invest in education, they dominate emerging industries. They dominate emerging industries. Yes, globalization is real, Brother Mark. Globalization is real, brother Mark, for sure, man. That's good stuff. Also, countries that invest in education, they influence global culture, economy, and politics. And I'm going to show you, I think right now, the United States is number 36 in the world. I'm going to show you some of the countries that are above us in education. You're going to be surprised. An educated country also goes towards stronger communities and safer societies. Education strengthens communities by promoting, watch this, civic engagement. Civic engagement, like volunteering and voting. When you're educated, when you have an abundance of education, You are involved in civic engagement, like I talked about earlier. You volunteer because you want to give back. You vote. You educate others on the importance of voting. You have lower crime rates because education reduces the likelihood of incarceration. And this is why it's so important for what's going on right now with what's happening in the United States with education. You see that the administration now is going after freedom of speech at certain colleges. You look at the dispute going on with Harvard University and some other public and private institutions. And, you know, it's a dangerous pathway that we're on right now. Greater community resilience during economic or natural crisis. Greater community resilience during economic or natural crisis. In other words, with an educated public, they're able to pull together and maintain what it is that they need and pull together and help one another with resources and assets when it comes to a natural crisis or an economic crisis. Yes, Karen, it's also important to know the Constitution and its amendments to know your rights as a citizen. And that's what happens when you have an educated country. They know that they're part of civic engagement, and they know things like the Constitution, so they can fight back against those who go against the Constitution. And then number 7, and we're going to move on to a different area in education, and I'm going to show you some stats about the importance. In an educated society, they promote cultural preservation and progress. What do I mean by that? An educated society values both its history and its future. Okay. Yeah, it's so important that we understand the importance of the history. And we're going to go through that tonight. I'm going to show you the history of education, and it's going to blow your mind about some of the things that we thought we knew and we don't. Education helps preserve languages, traditions, and heritage. It's good for us to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's why the banning of books in schools is a horrific thing that they're doing. When you want to get rid of history, you dummy down your nation. Education helps preserve languages, traditions, and heritage. It also fosters understanding and tolerance across diverse cultures. One of the reasons that we have such ignorance against people who are different from one another is because of the lack of education. The lack of empathy comes from not wanting to open up and try to understand where a person is. Having conversations with people that are not like you, whether you agree with them or not, once you get to understand them, at least you realize who a person is and you find out what they stand for. And hopefully that'll break down some of the ignorance. Yeah, Brother Mark, what you saying? I look at Trump's retreating from globalization, his focus on nationalism and isolationism. Yes, that's taken away from an educated public. That's taken away from an educated public, and that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. It separates us, and separatism is not a good thing. It promotes ethical leadership and global citizenship. Ethical leadership is it provides you, ethical leaders do things not according to what they believe, what they think, but what they believe is best for everyone. And global citizenship, that means that we're not just worried about what goes on in our little space and time, but we are concerned about what goes on in the world. What goes on in the world. In other words, what happens here in Georgia if we're not concerned about it, it has an effect on every other state. You look at the overfishing that's going on in some of these foreign seas. You look at some of the toxic waste that's being dumped in some of the oceans and how it affects more than just that area. You look at pollution. You throwing stuff in the out in the lawn, or you're just throwing stuff out on the street, and you think they'll clean it up. Yeah, but it may go into a landfill, or it may go into the sewage. It may stop stuff up. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's not good. You ever see those turtles with fish nets and fish with fish nets and stuff that they're caught in? It's horrible what we're doing to our society. So that's some of the importance of having an educated country. Okay. Now, I want to take you to some other things here. We talked about the importance of an educated country. I want to talk to you, and I should have told you about tonight's episode. And we're going to dive deep into these topics that shape our lives and future, and that's what we're doing. We're talking about the importance of education, not just in the traditional sense, but through its rich American history, the power of reading, the role of public, private, historically Black colleges and universities, and the growing influence of alternative education models. And we're getting ready to deal with that right now. We ought to know that education is more than textbooks and classrooms. It's the gateway to freedom. It's the gateway to freedom, opportunity, and innovation. Here's what I always say to myself. Education provides us the ability to read a roadmap and plan out the pathways to success through learning. Let me say that again. Education, this is for me. Education provides us the ability to read a roadmap and plan out the pathways to success through learning. So tonight, as we just went through that one little phase, let's continue a journey through how education built our society and how it's going to shape our future. Okay. You with me so far, guys? All right. Okay. Let's talk about this. We're going to talk about another phase of the importance of education. So the foundation, we're going to the history now. The foundation of the American education system, okay? Here's a little historical snapshot for you. Education in colonial America was largely, and this is, well, let me say this. Education in colonial America was largely informal, family, or church-led. Massachusetts established the first public school, the Boston Latin School, in 1635, and it is still in existence as of today. As of today, the first public school in 1635, the Boston Latin School. Let me tell you about the Boston Latin School. They majored in dissent. In other words, and we know that dissent is the expression or holdup of opinions at variance with those previously commonly or officially held. In other words, don't think like everybody else. That's what the Boston Latin School taught in 1635, to think for yourself. In 1635, they taught Latin and Greek. Now, this is so interesting for you to understand. 1635, they taught dissent. Don't think like everybody else. And they also taught Latin and Greek. Why? Let me give you a little headway here. Brother Pitts, you know this because we had the same teachers. American, the English is not an official language of America. In other words, English is not an American language. English is a combination of Germanic that's heavily influenced by French and Latin. It's a mixture of Germanic, Latin, and English, okay? And Latin, I'm sorry. The English language is 29% of the English words have a Latin origin, Another 29% derived from French, and about 26% comes from Germanic sources. That's why it's important that whenever you are looking for the definition of a word, not only should you check the dictionary or if you're Googling it, but you also need to make sure that you do something called the etymology, and that's etymology. Always check the etymology of a word. etymology. Check the etymology of the word, because that's going to give you when that word came into effect. There's some words that we're using right now that really didn't come into the English language until about 19 something, 18 something. But you want to look at the history of the word and how it evolved into what we think it means. Okay. So the Boston Latin School and the first education law. Here, watch this, get this. The first education law was called the 1647 Old Deluder Satan Act. Old Deluder Satan Act. DELUDER Satan Act. You ask, what in the world is the 1647 Deluder Satan Law? I'm going to tell you, this is going to trip you out. The Puritans during that time, they believed that Satan wanted people to be ignorant and not be able to read scripture. So schools were established throughout the colonies so that children could learn to read, especially the Bible. And the Bible that they read was the Geneva Bible. That was the Puritans' Bible, and then followed by the King James Bible. The Bible and something called the Primer, Primer, which talked about Bible lessons, were the textbooks for learning. So we see that early education was informal, family, or church-led. The first school of 1635, the Boston Latin School, taught about religious education. They learned Latin and they learned Greek. Why? Because in order to interpret biblical scripture, you need to know Greek, Latin, Hebrew, Aramaic. The Bible is an English translation of a Greek text about a man who spoke Aramaic and quoted his Hebrew scriptures. 4 different languages at work. So you need to know those languages. Get a little deep on you, but don't worry. We're going to bring it all home. Over time, the nation moved towards structured public schooling to promote democracy, literacy, and workforce readiness. But you're going to see that religious education was at the forefront of not only grade schools, but even our colleges. Many of our colleges, mainly our HBCUs, started off as seminaries and teacher colleges. But we'll get to that. So, the importance of education. We learned the foundation of the American education system. We gave you a historical snapshot. Reading, the cornerstone of freedom and growth. Early education was rooted in the ability to read religious texts and laws. So as far back as you can go, religious texts and laws were at the forefront of everything that they learned. Frederick Douglass once said, once you learn to read, you will be forever free. Brother Mark, that's why I said earlier, learning to be your own interpreter is the best freedom that you could have. Okay? This is from Frederick Douglass way back when. Once you learn to read, you will be forever free. Reading, literacy is freedom. Look at what's under the scrutiny right now, the most scrutiny. Education. Taking away of books. There's a reason for this. Brother Pitt said it. Brother Douglas, you said, all of you said it. A less educated public. A less educated public. Corporate giants can control uneducated folks and continue to greedy against the needy. Brother Henry Pitts, that's you, man. That's just what you said. Reading empowers individuals to think critically, communicate effectively, and access broader opportunities. They used to say, if you want to hide something from a black person or a poor person, put it in a book. And that's horrible. That's the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. And that's why it's important for us to read. Get off of TikTok, get off of social media, get off of Facebook, unless you're listening to the Dr. Jeff Experience, of course, or some other real experienced podcast. I listen to a few other podcasts throughout the day because they're very educational. But if it's not adding to your knowledge, then it's taken away from your knowledge. Reading empowers individuals to think critically, communicate effectively, and access broader opportunities. Because I got a ton of stuff over. So the history of education, you see the rise of public and private colleges. Number one, and this is crazy because this is what's in the news right now. Harvard University, 1636. Now, I told you about the Boston Latin School. The Boston Latin School was established in 1635. Now, get this. Harvard was established in 1636, based a lot off of the Boston Latin School. Okay? And it was America's first college. Guess what? It was originally founded to train clergy. I'm telling you, religious education played a big part of American education. Public universities emerged in the 18th and 19th centuries to provide affordable education to wider populations. The University of North Carolina, 1789. Private colleges, they often emphasize specialized training, get it? Training and religious education, fostering academic diversity. I'm telling you, our education system in the very beginning was geared towards religious education and training on teachers, training for teachers, fostering academic diversity. So then we have the historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs. Education is liberation, because we weren't able to go everywhere. So these schools, our HBCUs, they were founded after the Civil War to provide higher education to Black Americans, which were excluded from white institutions. Now, you've got Howard University, 1867, Morehouse College, 1867, and Spelman College. They are all examples of institutions producing leaders, doctors, teachers, and artists. And our HBCUs remain critical for our social mobility, cultural preservation, and our leadership development even to this day. But let me give you a little bit more about that, because our first HBCU was Cheney University in Pennsylvania. It was originally called the Institute for Colored Youth, and it's the oldest HBCU. Then you have 1865, which was Shaw University, established in North Carolina. Then you have 9 HBCUs in 1867. Alabama State, Barber Scotia College, Fayetteville State, Howard University, Johnson C. Smith, Morehouse, Morgan State, St. Augustine's, and Talladega College. And then you get Morris Brown in 1881, Spelman College. Get this, Spelman College was originally called Atlanta Baptist Female Seminary. Morehouse was originally a seminary that started in Augusta, Georgia. It was originally a seminary. And then as they started moving forward towards liberal arts courses, the Interdenominational Theological Center was established, and it had 7 or 8 historically Black seminaries, one being Morehouse School of Religion. I graduated with my master's degree from there. Located right, was called the Atlanta University Center, AUC. And then in 1890, you had the Second Morrill Act that required segregated Southern states to provide public higher education for African Americans, leading to the establishment of more HBCUs. Yeah, Kiva, we had Tennessee State, came a little later, but you did have Tennessee State, Albany University, which was originally, here we go again, Albany State University was originally called Albany Bible and Manual Training Institute. 1867, Howard University was actually called Howard University Training Center for Teachers and Preachers. Very interesting when you talk about the history of education. But then let's not forget about the importance of alternative education models, because everybody's not going to a 4-year college. Everybody's not going to go the bachelor, master, PhD, doctoral route. So then you have the charter schools. You have Montessori programs. And a Montessori school is an educational institution that uses the Montessori method, a child-centered approach to learning developed by Dr. Maria Montessori. And what these schools do is they emphasize hands-on learning, student independence, and a prepared environment that encourages children to explore their natural curiosity and learn at their own pace. And many of those, the Montessori way, you will see in homeschoolers, or they actually have specific Montessori schools. There is an upheaval of online schools, which I'm hoping to introduce to you tonight, and trade schools that challenge traditional educational models. And we need alternative education models. We need technical colleges. We need plumbers. We need carpenters. We need people with hands-on experience. What they do is they offer a specialized curricula, hands-on skills training for diverse learners. Alternative education can meet the needs of students underserved by traditional systems. And then education as a tool for equity and innovation. Access to quality education narrows gaps and fosters innovation. Okay, when you have equity, when education is a tool for equity and innovation, you give people the opportunity to narrow the social gaps, and we foster more innovation within these United States of America. Literacy and education levels directly correlate with economic mobility, political participation, and community health. Again, Brother Pitts, this is what you and Mark Douglas were talking about. An educated society is stronger and a more resilient society. Now, moving forward, reimagining education for the 21st century. We are emphasizing STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, financial literacy, critical thinking, global citizenship, and curriculums. Moving forward, we have to support lifelong learning through certifications, online programs, and adult education. Recognizing that reading, history, diverse institutions, and alternative education are all essential for a thriving future. Okay. Now, let me give you some stats, and then I'm going to introduce you all to something that's going to be available for everyone. Let's talk about graduation rates. Graduation rates around the world. This is going to mess you up. Let's look at high school graduation rates as of 2024. These stats are as of 2024. South Korea has a 96.7 graduation rate. Japan has a 95% high school graduation rate. The United States is in third place with an 87% graduation rate. And then Germany at 86% and Mexico at 65%. So those are your top 5 countries with graduation rates. South Korea has one of the highest graduation rates globally. So let's look at college graduation rates of bachelor degree completion. South Korea, 69%. Canada, 66%. Japan, 65%. United States is in fourth place. 56% of the United States has bachelor's degree. India has 13%. Canada has the highest proportion with tertiary education. Now, let's look at educational attainment among adults 25 to 64. Canada is number 1. 63% of them have bachelor's degree, 11% have a master's degree, and 1% have a doctorate degree. Canada. Japan is in second place. 56% have bachelor's degrees, master's degrees are 9%, and doctorate degrees are 1% for Japan. United States is number 3, 48% for bachelor's degree, 11.1% for master's degree, and 2% for doctoral degrees. Germany, 28% bachelor's, 5% master's, 2% doctoral, and then India, 13%, 2%, and 0.5%. So as you can see, United States still has a lot to do to catch up. And here's a real staggering statistic that we need to understand as we talk about importance. We're going to go a little over because I got a little bit more information and an introduction to something I want to talk to you about. So here's some key findings that a survey of 1,621 American adults. There was a 12-month survey conducted by this organization, and their key findings was that almost half of the respondents hadn't read, out of 1,600 people, half of the respondents haven't read a book over 1 year. 48%, 48.5% had not read a book over 1 year. Print books were the most read books, 35%. The 65 plus age group recorded the highest population of print books at 45%. The 45 to 54 age group contained the highest population of non-readers, 60%, 60.9, so really 61%. Males recorded a slightly higher population of non-readers compared to females, 51.4%. So you see what some of the problems are, but let me give you another staggering statistic because this messed me up. So this is a stat from 2022 to 2023. Illiteracy. Let's talk about literacy. Let's talk about what literate means. Being literate basically means that you are able to read and write. Now, there's levels of literacy. illiteracy has become a serious problem. And here it is, Brother Mark and Brother Pitts, you were talking about this. Illiteracy has become such a serious problem in our country that 130 million adults are now unable to read a simple story to their children. 21% of adults in the United States are illiterate in 2022. 54% of adults have a literacy below a 6th grade level. 45 million people are functionally illiterate and read below a 5th grade level. Let me say that again. 45 million people are functionally illiterate and read below a 5th grade level. We got to do better as a country. 44% of the American adults do not read a book in a year. And the top 3 states for the highest child literacy rates were Massachusetts, Maryland, and New Hampshire, in that order. You remember what I talked to you about Massachusetts? It was the first school called the Boston Latin School, and then the first college was Harvard. The bottom 3 states for child literacy rates were Louisiana, Mississippi, and New Mexico. Literacy data and its impact on the economy. Here's what you were talking about. 3 out of 4 people on welfare can't read. 20% of Americans read below the level needed to earn a living wage. 50% of the unemployed between the ages of 16 and 21 cannot read well enough to be considered functionally literate. And between 46 and 51% of American adults have an income well below the poverty level because of their inability to read. Here's the big part right here. Illiteracy costs American taxpayers an estimated $20 billion each year. But yet we want to cut funding for schools. School dropouts cost our nation $240 billion in social service expenditures and lost tax revenues. But we want to cut funding for education and we want to cut funding for social service? Doesn't make sense. Literacy, 3 out of 5 people in American prisons can't read. To determine how many prison beds will be needed in the future years, some states actually base part of their projections on how well current elementary students are performing on reading tests. In other words, starting in the 3rd grade, a number of states, based on the testing of 3rd graders, they know how many, they project how many prison beds they're going to need in the future. We got to do better, people. We got to do better. Speaking of charter schools and new and future trades, don't forget lifetime learning. My grandfather told me stories of working in manufacturing during the war, then moving to Jersey, Philadelphia docks. Now the house needed working on. He applied for job order, no formal education. He taught himself. So yeah, that's it, man. That's it, Mark. Teach yourself, man. We can teach ourselves. We can teach ourselves. Listen, I want to present something to you. And let me see. Let me do this. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to, nope, not going to do that. Stop sharing. Let me do this. I'm going to bring something up. I'm going to introduce it to you. It has not launched yet, but we're going to launch this in about, hopefully about 2 weeks. So get ready. We have been working hard for the last couple of months, and based on a lot of interviews, based on a lot of research, we have come up with something that I find to be innovative that falls in line with what we have talked about tonight. And I want to present to you something that I am very proud of. Now I'm going to share this screen. And I want to present to you. Let me see. Okay, there it is. I want to present to you the Fauntleroy Institute. And the Fauntleroy Institute is a place of, it is a certificate training program, and it is for ministry leaders and community leaders and those in corporate area. Okay. Let me show you. That's me. I'm the founder. And there's our mission and vision statement. And here's some of the courses that will be available to anyone. We've got ministry in the environment. We've got ministry and community partnerships, nursing and health ministry, ministry and economics, ministry and criminal justice, ministry and social justice, homeschooling course, ministry and program management, ministry and civics in the Black church. We've got a course, the United States Constitution, Origins, Interpretation, and Contemporary Issues, Community Organizing in Urban Areas, and Homeschooling course for African American families. So I am proud to present to you the Fauntleroy Institute, something that we have been working on for a little bit of time now, and we're going to launch this within 2 weeks. So we'll be able to give you more information about that once we launch, and we'll have cohorts, no more than 25, no less than 10 people, and prices will be available. We'll have discounted prices for those who take 2 or more courses. You can only take 3 at a time, but I'm very proud of that. Listen, I hope you got something from the importance of an educated country. I threw a lot of information out at you, but I just wanted to show you the importance of education and how education started, and the importance of us to self-educate, get educated through schooling, through technical schools, just picking up a book and reading. Okay? Picking up a book and reading. Listen, it doesn't matter how old you are. I finished my doctorate degree in my 60s. Okay. Listen, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Okay. If you put your mind to it, you can do it. But more than anything, pick up a book, read, fact check everything that you get. When you see something on social media, when you hear something on the news, go and find out other sources about that information. Listen, this has been fun. I hope you had as much fun as I did. I want to thank you for joining me today on this particular journey. It's an important journey through the story and the significance of education. Now, whether it's through the pages of a book or the halls of a university or the flexibility of alternative learning, education empowers us to dream bigger, think deeper, and build stronger communities. And that's what we needed right now. That's what we need right now, stronger communities. The ability to dream bigger and think deeper. Tear down all of the ignorance and prejudiceness that we have towards one another. Remember this, learning is a lifelong journey. And every book that you read, every class that you take, okay, and every question that you ask moves you closer to the life that you were meant to lead. Stay curious, guys. Stay committed and stay courageous. Uh, oh, we got one more question. I'm gonna take this. You hear about a job you like, study it. What are the requirements? Right. Find out what the requirements are and then get to it. Get busy. Get busy. Until the next time, stay curious, stay committed, stay courageous, and you know how we always close. Listen, go out, meet needs, solve problems. All right? Go out and tell somebody next time they need to get in touch. I mean, they need to tune into the Dr. Jeff experience. Share this with somebody. It'll be up for a while on YouTube, Facebook Live, and LinkedIn. So go ahead and share it with somebody, okay? Let folks know what's going on. Go out and meet needs, solve problems. One love, y'all. God bless you. Thank you.